Hey, I'm Agnes. I work with PI3, and one of the kind of ongoing projects that I'm involved with is and coming up with better ways to create a community-managed catalog of innovation data sets, and also like the tools that are used to produce them. So things like code that's used on innovation data sets, also just getting like detailed metadata, how people operate between different information data sets and innovation data sets and map them onto one another. And so kind of as a prototypical way of starting to do this, we've set up a couple of like public indexes that everyone can contribute to. And I'm just going to show you those today. One of them is in a Google Sheet, one of them is a GitHub repository. I'll just give you an overview of where to find them, and then how to contribute. And there's also a bunch of information on our site about how to do that as well. So I'm just going to share my screen. So if you've not seen it before, this is our website. If maybe SJ could drop a link to it in the chat, it is at iii.pubpub.org. And here is where all of our talks and notes, so slides, Zoom chats, questions, all of these things exist on this site, going all the way back to 2019. But we also have this page for public data sets and scripts. The first thing I'm going to show you is the Open Patent Datasets index. So this is a like curated list of innovation data sets that are used by different people in the community. And if you want to contribute to it, you can either, there's a Google form link to it, which is on the site, or you can just simply add a row. But there's also a bunch of metadata that we'd really appreciate people filling in, especially if this is a data set you use a lot or contribute to. The really important column is this one, and this is one that it's really hard for us to do. This is a column of if you know of data sets or publications that use a particular data set, particularly if they're ones you've been involved with. That's a really, really useful reference. And this is something we're going to start to use more and more to build out a data set citation graph and actually figure out, you know, for people who've published open data sets, what is the impact of that data set? Where has it appeared? Who has used it? What other data sets have been built on top of it? And so this is a great column, and we would really love some more links in it. And that's something we'll be adding to as well. Just quickly, I also want to show you the very slowly loading page, which is, so we also linked on the same page a little further down. Okay, so there's also a video of how to contribute to the Google Sheet if that's something you're interested in. And then there's also this shared GitHub repository, which is a pretty recent addition. And this is for data processing scripts. So this is if you have code that you've published online that operates on an innovation data set, or you use a script maintained by a platform, this is a great place to share that. And you can share files or you can share links to code. And we've linked some kind of common tools at the bottom. But this is another resource that we're really hoping to build out. And we also really hope that it can be useful. I think, yeah, that's about it. I will say also in the Google Sheet that we maintain another tab, which is a list of like places you can publish your data. And that's another thing that would be great to get contributions to as well. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Agnes. So we have 3 breakout rooms, and Agnes and I can, why don't we all give a 1-minute pitch for what we're going to discuss in our breakouts. Agnes and I can go first. We're going to be talking about data cleaning and reconciliation, and using OpenRefine as an example of ways, easy ways to get started, either using public reconciliation services or just cleaning up data that you have locally. Cyril?
Sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. So today I would like to invite you to discuss the the opportunity to develop collaborative data design, and how to use GitHub as a data sharing platform, which can be counterintuitive. So actually, the basic point is that, for example, theoretical models have long been thought with continuous improvement in mind. By contrast, data sets are often shared, if shared, as a snapshot, which makes them quite improper for collective continuous improvement. And so in this session, what I would like to do is to explore what are the tools which are available to the community today to develop collaborative data design, which would help us to not only to build on the shoulders of giants, but also to grow the giant collectively in terms of data. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it.
Awesome. Jay?
Yeah, so here with colleague Ian Weatherby from Google, we're going to walk through how to use BigQuery and the Google resources to do patent analytics. So basically 2 parts. One is a quick walkthrough of all the data that's publicly available, which is pretty extensive. And then we'll walk through some notebooks that show examples of how to query the data, how to interact with it, and some kind of framework for some general models with a pretty straightforward regression example, but then some more sort of advanced kind of text classification, deep learning models as well, but pretty quick and easy. So yeah, if you're interested in what's freely available and open sourced, come check it out.
And can we add new data sets to that collection?
You can, yeah. We're also going to walk through how to upload and create data sets. And then also looking forward to having a conversation and hearing what's top of mind for folks, because Ian and I have quite a bit of flexibility over our kind of future R&D roadmap, and we'd love to hear what would be the most impactful from you all, and that's something that we could certainly prioritize to work on.
Fantastic. Does anyone have any questions for the 3 presenters before we break out?
Wait, does Adam want to talk about the main session as well?
Yeah, so the idea is just, this is kind of the not elsewhere classified group. We thought it would be good to have an opportunity to hear about things that we haven't thought of. And so if you either are wondering about something, or you have a thought of something you'd like to hear more about in the future, or none of the other 3 seem to fit you, but you want to talk about patents, we're the misfit group. We'll just, if nothing comes of it, that's okay too, but we thought it was good to have some opportunity for unstructured discussion. Okay, Alenka, I think now you can tell us what you started to say about your student.
Yeah. This student wants to do the research about technological catching up. But
say that again,
technological
what?
catching up.
Okay.
Catching up. But I'm using patterns, but he wants to do to build the networks where the using the citation pattern, the backward pattern citation, and doing a network of links to do how some developing countries are doing the catching up in this case, biopharmaceutical sector, but I think it is interesting to build the methodology. And we want to know that if it is possible to have the data set of your book, of Jaffe and Trachtenberg 2002, 2002, and doing the continuation, just until which year do you have the database?
So the old NBR database, the Hall Jaffe Tracker database, has not been updated. So you don't want, that's not what you want to use, because it's out of date. So what you want are, well, can I ask you, tell me what you mean by catching up so I can understand what it is you're looking for.
Technological catching up, catch up.
I hear the phrase. I want you to tell me what that means to you. I'm not sure I know what that means.
Well, if we recognize that there is a technological gap across countries, how countries, the less development countries can catch technological to the more developed countries, because an important thing that that explains the gap economic growth is the gap in technological field. Therefore, how can we analyze? How can we study the possibility of countries to catch up technological?
Okay, so put aside for a moment, let's not talk about data. We'll come back to the data. Just conceptually, in your mind, what would you be looking for as evidence of a country catching up, or catching up faster, or catching up more slowly? What is it you would like to, what is it you'd like to look for?
For example, one indicator is the lag time backward patent citation. That's what it's a topic that we have been working. If you see, some developing countries use more time to do the backward patent citation than others. For example, if you see China, India, and some other countries use less time to do the citation, that means that they have the abilities to be in the knowledge frontier of technology. Therefore, okay. Yeah.
No, so I understand your idea. I don't actually know if anyone has looked at that, whether in fact it's true. Even if you compare the US and Mexico, for example, where I assume your prior belief would be that the US is more or less at the frontier and Mexico might be behind the frontier. I don't actually know whether you would find that patents taken out by Mexican nationals on average cite older prior art than patents taken out by Americans. That's an empirical question. I don't know if anyone else in the room has ever seen anything looking at that. I'm not aware of anything. For those of you, I see a couple people, Bitsy, you've come in late. If you want to check out the breakout rooms, you can go to one of the other discussions. We're having a miscellaneous, not elsewhere classified conversation here, which you're welcome to stay for, but you're also welcome to move on to one of the other rooms.
Well, there is Fabian who is doing the research, Fabian Martinez. I don't know if he wants to talk because he wants to do a mathematic model, but he can explain. He's there. Fabian.
Yes, hello. The idea is simple. I know who is in the center of the universe. In the case of the patents or companies or researchers. In the case of the enterprises, I know who is in the center of the universe. This exercise is a version of the game, Kevin Bacon game. Kevin Bacon says in an interview, I am in the center of the Hollywood. And the mathematics think, really who Kevin Bacon is in the center of the Hollywood? Well, in this case, the research about the enterprises, who enterprise is in the universe of the pharmaceutic or biopharmaceutic.
Okay.
Who is in the center of the biopharmaceutic universe in the case of the patent? Yes.
Okay. So I understand. I think I understand. So to go back then to the data question we started with, what you're asking is where can you get the most current information that has not just the count of citations, but the identity of the patents that are cited by specific patents. I'm going to call on Kyle. Are you here, Kyle?
Yep, still awake. Yep.
I don't remember. Do you remember whether Patents View has the actual citations, not just the counts?
No, it has all the citation data. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it also
So-
tags them by examiner or applicant.
So Patents View is the website that is maintained by a contractor for the USPTO. So they have the most current US data. And you can get all the citations information there. If you want non-US patents, I think you might have to go to I'm blanking, Kyle. Blanking on the,
So PatStat is
PatStat,
yeah, that's paid. I would actually advise, if you just want a kind of a taste of what PatStat has to offer, just go to Google, Google's BigQuery data set. They have a lot of stuff there. It's not as detailed or as well maintained, I would say, as PatStat, but there's a lot of information there from a lot of countries. It's basically Google Patents, but in a form that will, is queryable.
So just to be clear, PatStat is maintained by
The EPO.
EPO, and it's very complete, but you have to pay for it. It's not free.
That's right.
Whereas the Google patents, they vacuum up whatever they can.
That's yes, exactly.
The other possibility, if there are specific sectors or entities that you're interested in, lens.org has, they do collect patent documents worldwide, and they have, in a sense, the complete global citation network. The thing about lens.org is it's not set up for you to like download the whole data set and map the entire network. You have to make specific queries in terms of what you're looking for. So I don't know if it would give you what you want, but you could look at it.
And also just a word of caution on co-invention networks, which I think is what Fabian was talking about. It depends on sort of company culture as to who's actually on the patent. For the US, for example, I think you'll find that Steve Jobs is probably one of the most central people in the whole patent universe because his name just went on everything that came out of Apple. So it's a tricky question.
Kyle, is that really true? I understood that having names on an invention application that didn't really belong there was grounds for invalidation. You had to be careful about that.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure. Maybe that's a new thing. I know other companies that have done similar things and that continue to do similar things. But no, I haven't looked into. I know that Steve Jobs has a huge number of patents, even though he's not the technical, part of that company.
So you see here's the public use data archive. This is it. So this is nbr.org, the public use data archive. Now you see we have this message here. We're telling people not to use the data. Patent say it is out of date. And we're directing you up. We'll go here in a minute. We'll look at this again in a minute. We're directing you somewhere else. But if you really want to use this data set, it is here. And you can download it. Individual inventor records. And then the classification, where are the citations? Pairwise citations data. So this is the citations that you want to use for your network. But as Agnes was showing at the beginning of the session, if you go to the I3 public data set catalog, there's a complete inventory here of all publicly available data sets. And you're going to get, frankly, better and more up-to-date form of the patent data you want from these data sets than from NBR. But if you really want to use NBR, it is there.
Okay, it's perfect, Mr. Jaffe. Thank you.
Hey everybody, SJ's just gone to retrieve everyone from the GitHub session, but this is just if someone from each group wants to just give a really short summary of like what everyone talked about, the rest of the group, just to wrap up the session, and then we can all drift off. I will say also, if you haven't already, it's a really great idea. If you've attended one of these sessions, you can see an example in the notes under session 3, but just making a little list of your name and your institution, just under the kind of attendees. I mean, we have a kind of record of people's names anyway, but it's kind of nice to have it in this shared doc so people can get in contact with one another after the session. And if you want to be contacted by people, putting your email as well is a nice thing to do.
So Bhavin and Cyril, do you want to go first and summarize the discussions you were having?
So maybe Bhavin.
Oh, okay. Well, Cyril gave a very nice discussion on using GitHub and principles of collaborative data design. Basically, made a pitch for why we would want to do this. I think the two big things were sustainability of data set generating processes, and also what he called signal to noise ratios, how useful the data set is for a particular question. And then he essentially walked us through what he called three stages of a collaborative design process: the early development, the kind of playground or sandbox, a transition to continuous improvement, and then a full commitment to continuous improvement. And along the way, I mean, I don't want to repeat everything he said, it'll be recorded. Along the way, he talked about the various tools we could use and to kind of facilitate the different micro steps along the way. So for those of you who weren't there, I thought it was a very useful presentation, and then I would encourage you to watch it. I actually, I kind of half jokingly, but mostly not really jokingly, it struck me that it's the barriers to entry for at least someone like me who's been using patent data for a long time, but in my own kind of way. It struck me as the barriers to entry kind of switching were actually quite high, but doable. But the benefits in terms of the functionality of this approach for achieving the kind of things that we as a community have been thinking about doing seems quite large. So.
And just a small, oh, sorry, just
No,
a small note on that, for kind of like skills workshops, like intro skills to things like GitHub, the Unix command line, OpenRefine, and these other tools that people are really expressing an interest in using, but maybe there is quite a barrier to entry. This is the kind of session that we'll really happily run if there's enough people interested in, either as a kind of short half-hour intro or as a session where people can actually bring problems that they're encountering and sharing their data as well. So if that's something that would be broadly wanted, we can send a form around about that and kind of garner interest, but we'd really like to run those kinds of workshops.
Ian and Jay, how was your session? Does someone want to recap it?
Yeah, it was great. Ours was much more practical. Here's the data sets in BigQuery. Here's why BigQuery has some potential interesting features for cost sharing to maintain these large data sets versus who pays for the storage versus who pays when they query and analyze the data. Sharing the data, reducing the amount of repeated effort needed to clean up each sort of CSV file before you can join it together with other data sets to actually answer or make your questions possible. And then good discussion at the end about how does this fit into my current workflow. It mostly fits in now just as a nice way to slice and dice and potentially join and find the records of interest from the full patent corpus to something that's manageable to potentially download locally to process. So you might be looking for, give me the full text of US patents that are involved in a PTAB case. Well, the only way to really do that now is to have the full text of US patents on your disk and all of the PTAB cases numbers on your disk, and then go through and pick them out. In BigQuery, you could do the SQL join, and you could have that condition in your query, and you could say only download out the full text where there is a PTAB case, and you would get out 10,000 patents instead of needing all that storage space locally to process. So that seems to be the best, maybe initial way to get started, just to quickly slice and dice based on some conditions that might not be possible today. The fuller workflow of what it looks like would be great to be pulling the data sets and sharing the code that pulls from BigQuery to start with, instead of needing somebody to download a data set locally. So if you're sharing your research, you simply share your, say, R code, and R can pull from BigQuery. So R could pull from BigQuery, and you'd only need to, somebody else would only need to run that query to be able to reproduce your research, as opposed to also needing to download 5 different data sets locally and then point R to all those data sets. So it's potentially a faster way to immediately share your research and for somebody else to get the same exact result.
And with some kind of archival commitment that a given URL is going to have that data set for a long time.
Yes, and that's what we'd love to, talk with I3 about. How do we, for the data sets that we have, we're committed to maintaining those, but data sets that might get uploaded from other groups, how do we help them just make sure that those data sets continue to live? Because the storage cost is so cheap, but it's still there. And if somebody leaves the group and forgets to pay the $10 a year bill, that would be unfortunate if that data set went away. So having some central spot that can cover the cost of these very cheap data sets would be nice to alleviate that problem.
I could probably look this up, but how far back do you have the historical full text?
So we released all of whatever you can see in Google Patents, you can see it there for US full text. So all the old OCRs, we released the full text in BigQuery.
Meaning back to 1836.
Yes.
Yeah. Just for the rest of the audience, clarifying exactly what that means.
Yeah, and luckily, BigQuery it'd be great. We had some questions about data coverage, and it's one of the nice things you can do is we could answer that question in a minute. I could go write the query right now to figure out
how old they are.
Year and how old they are.
Apparently, some people have been collecting pre-1836 patents from various sources, but I have no idea whether there's a common. Petra Moser mentioned this in a seminar last week. That because people kept patent documents, so even though they were all burned up, some of them do exist around the country. That would be an interesting project. If anyone else know anything about that?
Yeah, Google has images of they're handwritten, not typeset. So Google has images of these handwritten ones, and I've got, I don't know, maybe 5 of them typed up.
1836.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a list that's floating around that just has their authors and titles and locations. So, and
interesting.
If anyone wants that, they can talk to me.
No, add it to the Google spreadsheet.
Ian, is there any connection to Google Scholars, or is this just patents?
So this one is just patents, unfortunately. So yeah, we've seen like the Microsoft academic graph and Crossref, and PatSite did a great job to link up with metadata from Crossref that cites patents, or that patent site. But yeah, unfortunately, no data from Scholar goes in there. Yeah. We do have sort of in the works a copy of PubMed, but that would only be a specific field.
Agnes, I think you were nominated from our session.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, we had so SJ and I, and you can find the slides, we'll link them in the notes, but we went through a bunch of kind of different tools, methods, and approaches to entity resolution and disambiguation, like different projects that people are doing, different kind of comparisons of projects that people are doing. And then we had a really great and long discussion about kind of meta records, including the lens meta record, and also kind of like issues with unique identifiers and like updates to them over time, and kind of different challenges facing like essentially all of these different disambiguation problems. We kind of touched on lots of different aspects of the problem. Oh, Adam, see you later. We also, yeah, and then Osmat also gave a nice demo of some of the kind of capabilities of the lens. We had a great conversation about like editing, like user editing of like fields in these tools. So both on PatentsView and the lens have some kind of tools that allow you to edit the data that you see and correct things that are wrong. And then also we talked a bit about this concept from librarianship called superwork, which is a way to follow up changes in entities over time and space. And kind of talk, but a lot of it was talking about different processes from different organizations. So we had people from PatentsView, EPO, Lens, and so it was a discussion that was like that. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everyone who came. I feel like all of the discussions were really great and involved, and everyone contributed a lot. It's really nice to have everyone together.
Thank you.